Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed their first group of sessions and presentations and workshops this morning. We are here to talk a bit today about environmental justice and EJ issues in the state of Pennsylvania. I don't think I need to tell you all how important environmental justice is and the work that we do around it. So I've invited these wonderful ladies up here to talk a bit about their work around EJ in Pennsylvania. So I will go ahead and introduce them, starting with Miss Rafika Muhammad. So Miss Muhammad is a lifelong resident and graduate from Harrisburg High School. She graduated in 1976. She's been a central figure in the Harrisburg community for many years. Her work as an entrepreneur with urban agriculture, cultural outreach, and nonprofits has influenced the city as well as planted many seeds of growth and sustainability. Ms. Rafika is the co-founder and artistic director of Nagazi, a 501c3 organization created in 1983. Nagazi provides arts, cultural programming, and African-American cultural and awareness, areas of physical fitness, food and nutrition, and economics. She also ran a family business for the past 34 years, along with her late husband, Dr. Ali Muhammad, who passed in 2017. Ms. Rafika has implemented urban agriculture projects throughout the city of Harrisburg and started Let's Get Dirty! A certified permaculture program, which has successfully certified 26 individuals in permaculture design in 3 Pennsylvania counties. Several of these individuals have started their own business in permaculture farming, mural arts, design, teaching, and retail. In 2016, Ms. Rafika started Sustainable Human Environment, also known as SHE. SHE's focus is to consult, educate families, communities, businesses, and individuals on living a more sustainable lifestyle through reducing their carbon footprint by recycling, healthy eating, rain and water waste management, and disaster preparedness. Ms. Rafika is also an active member of Pennsylvania DEP's Environmental Justice Advisory Board. In her personal life, she is a mother of 10, a grandmother of 30 plus, great-grandmother of 8. So welcome, Ms. Rafika. Our next speaker is Ms. Winnie Okello, who has a professional degree in professional engineering. She serves as a statewide strategic coordinator of the Office of Environmental Justice within the Pennsylvania DEP, that's Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection. Winnie is a professional engineer, entrepreneur, author, who avidly serves on leadership boards of various nonprofit organizations, including the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine's Transportation Research Board, the Bucknell Black Alumni Association, and Bucknell Engineering Alumni Association's Executive Board. Winnie received the Women Breaking Barriers Award in 2010 from the Whitaker Center Women in STEM Awards, and her inclusive excellence work highlights the importance of restorative justice practices and diversity, equity, and inclusion, particularly in service to environmental justice communities. So welcome, Winnie. So I have some discussion questions, but we also want to take a lot of time to be able to make time for Q&A. So I'll start with the first question, and we can just go in order. But can you please introduce yourself and share what drove you to this work? What inspires you to continue each day?
Again, my name is Rafika Muhammad, and I'm honored to be here amongst all of you, and thank you for the invite of being here. What drives me to this work is that I live in environmental justice city, which is Harrisburg, your capital, every day. And I see the injustices every single day that happens in our city. So it kind of like motivates me to continue on doing the work, because when I was a young person here living here, this is my home, this city didn't look like this. Our streets were clean, our trees were maintained. Yes, we're a river city. We did, we're going to flood. That's an issue. But I'm just talking about how it looks. So over the years, as I'm seeing how things are, I just need to find a way how I can make an impact to get our elected officials, because I'm gonna come a little deep about the elected officials, to get them to understand that the residents are the ones that's in charge. And we put you in office to make sure that you do what we're asking. Some of that doesn't happen. So it's a twofold, and some of that gives me a lot of motivation to make our community better, to make our city more cleaner. But right now, what we need to do is to educate and to get our community and to get all of y'all, I'm sorry about that, to get you to really understand what the impacts are if you live in an environmental justice community. I just want to say one more thing, and I'm going to hand this over to Winnie, is that right now I'm concerned about the words. We want to play with wordsmithing too much, and environmental justice is not a fad. And as I'm listening across the state, sitting on the state board, which is my third term, just happened in the fall, I'm learning a lot about my state, Pennsylvania. This is not a fad. We're dying, just like some of the workshops you heard this morning and some of the things that we heard this morning as well. I don't like living in a filthy community. I don't like people bringing things in my community and dumping them. There's a lot that I don't like, and it is injustice. So I just wanted to bring this around full circle, is that we're here to make people be held accountable. And we're going to organize people to make sure that happens. And the power that we all have in every community is the vote. And if you really understand that, that's your power.
Thank you so much, Sister Rafika, for that very, very realistic take on what oftentimes is a very sensitive topic to a lot of people. And I know also, but quick reintroduction. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me, my name is Winnie Okello. I currently serve as the statewide strategic coordinator for our Office of Environmental Justice. And again, thank you for your words and your passion and your consistency and tenacity and your willingness to speak truth to power. Because at the end of the day, if you're in this room, you have some sort of contextual privilege or otherwise, and it is our duty as environmental professionals on every capacity to be able to not just speak up, but advocate when needed, and also use your professional capacity wherever possible, because those who we serve in our various capacities, myself as a public servant, it is important that we absolutely do our due diligence for the communities that we serve. And I do mean communities, not just neighborhoods or geographical areas. And so with that, what drove me to do this work is I was born in Kenya, East Africa. And if you know anything about the global impacts of issues of climate change and environmental issues, we understand that these are not just local issues. These are national issues. They are global issues. They're globally local, right? When I talk about global, I talk about global issues, local issues, local approaches, global impact, right? Understanding that what you do is not just limited to your spatial limits, right? So as a kid born in East Africa, the environment looked different, as you're saying, in my childhood. And when we're seeing the impacts of industrialization nowadays, and even when you talk about what is the role of the impacted communities in being a part of the solution, too often it is those who are most adversely impacted tend to be the least contributors, but are also being held to equal responsibility in addressing the issues. So I think there's a conversation to be had about that, especially when we talk about environmentally injustice impacted neighborhoods and communities, right? So yeah, so that's what drove me to do this work, is having an appreciation of not just that understanding that these are environmental issues, but I myself as a woman, when I was in undergrad, the thing that actually veered me towards environmental and water resources focus of engineering was the first time my environmental engineering professor kind of mentions about brownfields and its impact to folks, to gestating folks, to women who might be pregnant, right? What is the impact of endocrine disruptive chemicals, which is something that we still don't talk about enough as a community. When you talk about the impacts to our hormones, right? And understanding that, whether we're talking about gestational issues or chronic health issues, when you talk about carcinogens or respiratory issues that we see correlated to certain demographics particularly those in areas addressing environmental injustice, right? Because I'm talking about the issue here, because we haven't reached the end goal of environmental justice. The work we're doing is addressing environmental injustice. And until we really get comfortable addressing the problem, you will not get to a solution. So that's what continues to inspire me to do this work every day. So thank you so much. It is my joy to be here, and let's connect. Thank you.
Thank you. For my next question, can you please discuss the demographics of your community and communities in which you serve? What are some common characteristics that make these communities vulnerable? And can you please expand on some of the historical impacts of these communities?
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Run that first one again.
What are the demographics of your community and the communities that you serve?
Okay, the capital city of Harrisburg is your capital of the state, and we're mostly, if I'm not mistaken, pretty much 75% Black. May give or take a little bit. And our next population is becoming Latina, and we also have a large Asian population. Harrisburg is very, very diverse. I mean, we have the globe here, seriously, and we're proud of that. But when I drive through my city, again, growing up in a certain time when things were a certain way and looking now, it is very depressing. There's times I go to my old neighborhood and just cry because I just see the devastation, the blight, the crime, the drugs. I live not too far from here, which is called Uptown area, which is also known as the Camp Curtin area. If anybody knows anything about Harrisburg, Harrisburg was also part of the Civil War era. So the area that I live in, which is called the Camp Curtin area, used to be a campground for that time. So we have a lot of illegal dumping, which is one of my pet peeves about, because people really don't understand the serious impacts of that. And we also have some political issues that allow that type of activity to happen right here in our area. So downtown, you won't see illegal dumping happening down here, but you drive up the street a little bit and everything starts changing, and you wonder, why is this allowed to happen? The next thing that really is very impacted is the fact that we're in a sinkhole area. We have near an incinerator that's been here for a while, and some of y'all, if you Google about Harrisburg and the incinerator debacle, all of that information will come up. I was sharing with some people earlier today that I have to give Laxwana its props, because they have came in and cleaned up. The incinerator's still here. We're still burning trash. But they've cleaned up that area significantly, made some serious improvements, and also are giving back to this community. Sometimes if you damage something, you should repair it. So we have a long way to go as far as that is concerned. As far as sinkholes, which we don't talk a lot about, particularly in this area, that's an environmental impact. And it's happening in our community. There's places that people are living here in Harrisburg that should never had housing built on or structures built on, because eventually if they don't flood out, you're gonna go down. So we don't have those particular types of conversations. So there's a lot that I see that's just scratching a little bit of the surface of what goes on. One of the main things that you will hear me talk a little bit even more about today is that the illegal dumping issue, and I'm going back to that. It's really sad that you have people, and I hope today that y'all change your mindset, because that's what this is really about. What's up here? It's never the agencies. It's never the agencies. It's the people that work in these agencies. Your mindsets impact the community that you work for. So if you never went into a community of color, which I've found that out over the state, folks is running around here talking about, yeah, I'm environmental justice, and never walked in a hood. I have a problem with that, because now we're being exploited again. And the only reason why it's being done, because all this money now is coming down for environmental justice. You never talked about it before, but now we all in. And I'm just blessed that I'm in an area and able to sit at a seat, because I'm gonna stop you. I read maps, I go around, I look. If you're not supporting a community, I don't think you should get a dime. If your community is not close enough to still impact that community that's being impacted by environmental injustice, you shouldn't get anything. So with all these funds that's coming down, we're really blessed to sit and see who really can make the impact. And it's the average person on the street that's really doing this work. Sometimes we talk about volunteers. That's who's doing the work. But it's the people in these agencies that's making that money. So we got to get a balance here when we talk about and really get into the conversation about environmental justice. And when we really talk about illegal dumping. I didn't know illegal dumping has so many levels of waste and trash. You just see trash, but there's a lot of levels. So that's something we really need to get a grip on. It does impact our community. It does cause blight. It does cause crime. And there's another piece that we don't talk about neither, which I shared earlier. We talk about green waste, which is also green dumping. And a couple people was like, he's looking like, what is it? Green waste. Yeah, you have municipalities that cut their trees down, create mulch, do all kinds of things, but it doesn't go where it should go. It might end up in a park, in a community that is an environmental injustice community. That goes on right here. We see it every day. So these are some of the things that are very irritating. You might hear that a little bit in my voice, but I'm one of them ones that I just want to make you do your job, if that's your job. And if it's not your job, then remove yourself to put someone in there that really cares about the work. And there's people like me in this community, as well across the state, that thinks the same way. It's just, I'm just one of the ones that'll say it. Some of us have a hard time of having these hard conversations, and we need to start having these hard conversations.
Thank you so much for.
Thank you.
Yes. Ooh. I love listening to her talk, if you can't tell. I'll kind of piggyback off of what you said there. One of the things you highlighted and consistently have highlighted is that issue of illegal dumping, right? And oftentimes people confuse littering for illegal dumping, right? Understanding the magnitude of what those two words are, and also highlighting the fact that words matter. One thing you will often hear me say is words matter, language matters, context matters, right? And people will use sophistry to change the meaning of a thing in real time, right? While making you still believe it's a thing, right? And if you know, you know. Like understanding the importance of words. I mean, there's research papers that are within the environmental context that are actually calling that out and saying, hey, it's important for us to be very mindful and critical of how we are defining things, how we are telling the story of a people who have been systematically disenfranchised. I think that's really important. If we are going to do this work of addressing environmental injustice so that we can achieve true environmental justice for communities that are long overdue for just transitions, it is important that we are intentional about the words we use, about how we describe those communities, and how we hold ourselves accountable and recognize the privilege, contextual or otherwise. You'll hear me say that a lot, because when we're addressing issues of power and politics, right, I often say the 4 Ps to true Jedi, that's justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. You have to address the 4 Ps, power, privilege, policies, and practices, right? You must always address power, privilege, policies, and practices. And so to do that, you also have to then look at who are the communities that we're serving, to her question, right? Understanding the demographics of the community, at least for myself, on behalf of PADEP, that's the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. Its jurisdiction is the whole Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, right? In my position, I currently serve as a statewide strategic coordinator for our Office of Environmental Justice, which has gotten larger over the last couple of months with our new governor in place and our new secretary, who have both reiterated several times that environmental justice, as well as diversity, equity, and inclusion, are key mission points, among other things. And so when you take these two things together, I would like to, hopefully not butcher the quote, but reference a quote by the late MLK. One of his less known references is, all we are asking of America is to be true to what you put on paper, to the words that you stated on paper. When you say you're going to do a thing and you write it down, you should be following up on that, right? Because we often hear about, I have a dream, da da da. But when he starts calling out and saying, hey, you said a couple of things on paper, you said, we are beholden to these things. We should have access to these things. If you said them and wrote them down, wherever you did, be true to those things, right? And so PADEP covers all of Pennsylvania, the full Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. The Office of Environmental Justice covers areas that are designated as EJ areas, environmental justice areas. And those areas, you can see them currently through your EJ Viewer. EJ Viewer is the current mapping system, mapping tool. You can go on PADEP's webpage, or you can go on our environmental justice webpage, which will still take you to the EJ Viewer. EJ Viewer, I'm so used to the other name. So a current screen uses two factors, which is, I believe, racial component, racial designation, as well as income or socioeconomic standing. Now, quick heads up, with the new environmental justice policy that's coming back out, it will also be attached to it an updated version of your mapping tool, of your screening tool, to determine whether or not you're an environmental justice area. And that is based on actually a lot more expanded contributing cofactors to the determinant of an environmental justice area. The simpler version of that is we're getting a lot more nuance on how we are determining what is an environmental justice area, understanding that it's not just about race and income, understanding that the issues are very they're compounded, right? Understanding that there is an health equity associated with these things. Why are certain areas, why do we tend to see certain adverse health outcomes, right? When you talk about cumulative impacts, when you talk about the rates of, let's say, asthma or carcinogenic outcomes, when you talk about access to healthcare, good healthcare, like understanding that these issues, although sometimes they may seem separate, they're actually compounding to one another. And you often, even redlining, right? The historical impact of redlining, and you overlay that to EJ communities or EJ areas now. We're beginning to see correlations. We may not always be able to attribute a causality, but we're definitely seeing strong correlations from historic injustices to the outcomes you're seeing today. And what the work we do at OEJ, at the Office of Environmental Justice, is to hopefully bridge that gap and be able to provide you, our constituents, consumers, community advocates. Like you said, y'all are the one really doing the hard labor in this. And we want to make sure that we provide you the fuel for the fire, let's say, it's kind of simply put. We want to make sure we're providing you the necessary information that you need, whether it's from us or our partner agencies, to make sure that you have what you need to better advocate for yourselves in holding your agencies accountable. So thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much. We have about 10 minutes left, so I have one more question, and I want to make sure we take a question from the audience too. But for my last question, can you please speak to issues that you're working on that impact water quality and other types of water infrastructure? Describe your work. Describe the work you're doing to address this.
Well, I also sit on Capital Region Waters Board, which is an advisory board. I'm one of their ambassadors. I've been on that board since its inception, which I want to say maybe about 10 years now, give or take with that. And again, in my community, and seeing what goes down those drains and see what people do, the landscapers that come here and cut people's grass or maintain their lawns, and they want to blow the debris down our inlets. I'm looking at these corner garages, I hope they're all licensed, fixing people's cars, and then they take the oil and pour it down our inlets. These are the things that we see here. This is what we see every day. We do go to our elected officials and the power that be, and it just seems like nothing happens. So as we look through all of that and deal with all of that, those again, I'm just going to go back as this being very frustrating, and also what I just mentioned again, that falls under illegal dumping, big time. You're pushing things down the inlets. That's what causes Harrisburg to flood, even more than what we have. By me also being a part of Capital Region Water, I also worked with Chesapeake Bay Foundation and put in some of the rain gardens that we have in our area. In particular, what we would consider hot spots, that there's a lot of activity. and educating those communities because they want to know, why are you digging up this? Why are you putting in that? What are these things in the street? They're going to tear up my car. They look ugly. You're putting weeds in there. All of that had to be an educational piece. You had to educate the community that these are the why. This is the reason why you see these bump outs. They're going to slow the water down. These are the reasons why they're not weeds. Those are plants that will function and help clean the water. All of that's the education that had to be done, and we're still doing that education. A lot of people are busy, as you know, they have other things going on, and really and truly, we're getting better, but the environment is the last thing on a lot of people's minds until it really impacts you. And meaning impacting you in certain ways. It could be by fire, it could be by wind, it could be by water. When it impacts you, then now we're paying attention. What we want to do is try to prevent some things, to educate you and prepare you so when these things do happen, you'll know how to be able to be successful, and hopefully you can come out of those issues alive. I've been in 2 floods in my lifetime here. It's not fun when you lose everything. A flood is just like a fire. You can either get out in time or you can drown. So when we talk about where you live, and particularly here in Harrisburg, flooding is the issue. Every now and then we're getting a little bit of tornadoes, which is crazy, but it's happening here. Severe windstorms. And also when we talk about heat index, I'm very concerned about our summer. We're in 80-degree weather now. We were in 80-degree weather prior to May. So what is going to happen when summer happens? I'm concerned. We're an elder community. A lot of people are going to die, and we know that, but there's no plan in place. The education is very important to prepare our community for these things, and it is just not there. So again, my frustration is, and what I do as an individual, along with some people here in the room that I do know, along with our community, is that I just feel we need to put a serious group together. I don't want to use the term task force, but something that let people know when we running in the door and coming in, you know, we're in here serious. I have a little small group of folks, we do that already. When they see us come in, they're uncomfortable. We want you to be uncomfortable. If you're uncomfortable, then you've done something wrong. That's it. If you're comfortable, then you're doing mostly something right. But there's a lot of uncomfortability around here. Folks just are not comfortable. And I'm gonna be honest, I thrive on that because I want to know what's making you tick. And then what we can do to make those changes, because that's what has to happen. Too many people are in trouble. And this community and your community, and they're just afraid to tell you about it and talk about it. And we have to start talking to each other. If you don't do anything here today, please go back to your communities and have a conversation with someone that you don't know, that doesn't look like you, that doesn't maybe speak the same language that you do, and to get to know them. That's the part of environmental justice too. Because then you become a buffer for that community when you hear someone over here talking negative. Nah, this is what's happening over there because I'm there, I'm involved with those people, I'm doing work with those people. I know what's going on in that community. So you just can't come to me and tell me anything because that's not what works. That cuts a lot of the rumors and all that other stuff down. We have a lot of work to do, people, on ourselves, and then passing that out, permeating that out into our communities. And the only way that we're going to fight this environmental injustice beast, because that's what it is, because it's man-made. You know, nature didn't do this, we did this. Until we fight that, we're going to have to do this together against people that just don't want to make change. So everybody's not going to change their mind. I understand that. You just have some people that's going to do the negative. Then you get away from them. And let's put people in here that want to do the positive. And that's where I'm pushing for.
Thank you. Yes, as for the work that I do at DEP, out of the Office of Environmental Justice, one of the things that I really do appreciate about our office is that the work that we do cuts through every deputate under DEP. So whether it's oil and gas, whether it's water resources, whether it's abandoned mines, mine reclamation, radiation and remediation, all the deputies, air, clean air, noise issues. The Office of Environmental Justice works with all of them, particularly when it comes to permitting. Now, we do know that, again, our constituents have said we do have to do work beyond just permitting. We have to address issues beyond just when a permit is coming to us and a potential polluter is saying, I need permits for XYZ activity. And so the beautiful thing about OEJ is that it centers those who do meet the designation of an environmental justice community or area, number one. So that could be in an urbanized area currently, it could be in a non-urbanized area, regardless of where it is, as long as it meets the designation of environmental justice community, environmental justice area, we do have to address and have that response to that community. And so one of the things you will be seeing coming out of our office is the opt-in form, which allows you to, if you see something, say something, as they say. If you see a potential project, even before it becomes a permit, you're then able to submit an opt-in form and say, hey, DEP, I believe this is within an environmental justice area. Please consider some heightened or increased consideration in how you're going to evaluate this. This is well before we even receive a permit. You don't have to wait for a permit to come in. If you're here, things, rumblings in the air, as they say, you can submit, you can submit an opt-in form. Or you can write to us directly to the OEJ resource email, right? Anything that deals with environmental justice has to come in through the Office of Environmental Justice, regardless of what permit or whatever it deals with. And so then obviously we work with our water resources folks, whether it's green infrastructure related projects, MS4, any kind of stormwater, any kind of contamination issues. But also the other thing people forget about is the legal team, folks, right? We do have to work with our legal team to ensure that we are compliant to the legalities of things. They're fun, whether it's water quality issues, as well as even grant issues, ensuring that we have grant equity in how we are dispersing grants coming from the federal government, because as Sister Rafika said, there's a lot of money coming in. Earmarked specifically for environmental justice communities from the federal government, that can go to communities, community-based organizations, indigenous communities, designated indigenous communities. And it's really important to make sure that these funds get to the right people, right? I'm gonna make it very simple. If your house has been burning for 5 years and somebody else's house has been burning for 26 years, who needs more urgent assistance? If you set your house up on fire or somebody else came and burnt down your house, accidentally, you accidentally set your house on fire, somebody else comes in and blazes your house down. I'm talking just metaphorical here. Right? Because again, I'm African. One of the things I love is Proverbs. We learn a lot through very simple explanations of understanding complex ideologies, right? And and this is why I'm having this conversation, is because I know it's uncomfortable. I know it's a very touchy issue where folks like to get nuanced about the conversation, or rather people hesitate to get to the real nuance of the conversation, right? And one of the things I also bring up is our indigenous folks are oftentimes not part of the conversation, whether at the table, on the table, under the table, beside the table. You really have to be intentional about ensuring that the necessary voices, necessary people are within the conversation. And if they're not, let's not be dismissive about it. Go find them. I often say, if they're not coming to you, go to them.
That's right.
Right? Just because they're not there, don't excuse that as, oh, we tried. Okay, next. Because you have to understand why people are not able to show up to the conversation, right? And so with that, I believe I've touched on everything. Grants, at least the high level ones that pop up in my mind right now. We have education grants. I believe they closed out last year, December or something. So please, if you know somebody who was able to get one of the education grants, please work with them, right? We're looking to see a lot more collaborative effort, right? If you work together, again, African proverbs, you can get there faster by yourself, or you can get further together, right? You can choose to be greedy and get there faster by yourself, or if you want to go further, link proverbial arms with the next person, right? As Sister Africa said, talk to your neighbors. Find out what their needs are, because everything we do is out of relationship, right? Adversarial sometimes, I know, but even the work that I do, I recognize that I need my community members to work with me and not necessarily against me. And sometimes they may need to work quote unquote against me because perhaps they're choosing to call to true justice something that maybe I don't see correctly, right? And that's what it means to live in community. It's how we hold each other accountable. And with that, I cannot leave the session without highlighting this thing, which was highlighted kind of in the morning, but I'm not sure we talk about it enough. 1 second. My phone is doing things. Sister Rafika, we've had this conversation several times, and I realized, I was like, oh yeah, she mentioned this to me like over a year ago when we were talking about other things in the community about the comprehensive plan. And it's come back more consistently in my position with DEP as I've been talking with our legal folks, which is under the Pennsylvania, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Article 1, Section 27, which addresses our natural resources and the public estate. Are you all familiar with that? I would hope so, right? Because you'll be seeing it more and more often. Article 1, Section 27, which states that the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. It's a human right, a fundamental human right under the Pennsylvania Constitution. We're not talking about state, we're talking Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Constitution, right? And it has an understanding that Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including my favorite, generations yet to come.
Yep.
I often say it very simply in an indigenous proverb that we do not borrow the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children, right? Too often the work we do, we're assuming that, yeah, we'll get rid of it, we'll clean it up, or that's somebody else's problem. That somebody else is oftentimes your descendant that you don't know yet. So act like you know, please and thank you. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are at time, unfortunately. I was hoping we'd have a little bit more time for Q&A. So I'm going to leave you with one more question that I think will benefit everyone here. And I'm going to ask you to summarize in about 30 seconds. But how can these groups get involved? You gave us a lot of advice. You started to, but for the people here, what advice would you give to organizations, and how can they get involved, and how can they work with you?
Well, you can share my information with any of y'all. I'm being a little inundated, so give me a moment to get back with you. I have been blessed to do a couple speaking engagements lately, and I'm very honored about that. Basically, to get involved with the work, call the Office of Environmental Protection, Office of Environmental Justice, call your office. There's all kinds of ways that we can all get involved and work together. But the main thing that I'm hoping that I will, definitely come back here next year is get involved with your communities. Because I know you're not. A lot of you are not. Get involved with communities of color. Don't say you work with communities of color. Don't quote Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and all. Don't do that. Because you're going to get yourself in trouble. Get involved in your communities. Get involved with people. And I'm getting ready to have a workshop after this, just to talk more about environmental justice and breaking it down. A lot of the information I'm getting from this conference, Winnie and I are having that conversation, who we can bring in to really talk to community in baby steps. We got to spoon feed, because everybody don't know what we know. First of all, we got to even get the understanding of the terminology we're going to use. Community wants to know. They want to make a difference. They don't know how. So sometimes you got to come out of your office. I'm laughing because I just did that not too long ago. Took someone out of their office, a state person that was here in Harrisburg. How are you going to get feedback from a community and you have it at a state building? Who's coming? That's not how that works. So who's coming from the projects, public housing, whatever you want to identify? Who's coming to give you feedback? And y'all have to give reports. And some of y'all in the state of Pennsylvania will come across our board. That don't mean we're going to give you oh, that's great. No. We might tell you to go back and do it again because we don't see enough community engagement. So to get back with what you're saying is that engage in your community, because that's where you're going to get the pulse at. That's where you're going to get the energy at. That's where people will come to you and say, how can I help? And the main thing, I'm going to leave you with this, is follow up. Because we do all kind of programming and do all this and that. You don't get back with the people that you went and talked to just to tell them, you know what, this happened, this is okay, that's not okay, we got to do this, we got to do that. We just don't do no follow-up. We're just going about our merry way. And then a person like me, I'm listening to everything that you're saying. Some of us can read between all them little lines and nooks and crannies because we know that you're not telling the truth. So again, please communicate. That's the main key factor. One of the classes today was about communication. It's very important. And I'm here, I am available. I do travel, so I can come to some of your spaces and participate if you like. But please share my information, anybody that would like it. And thank you.
Thank you. As for me, same as Sister Rafika, feel free to reach out. My email is as shared, Okello at pa.gov. Very easy, Wokello at pa.gov. For the latest updates from the Office of Environmental Justice, I hope you have subscribed to the Environmental Justice newsletter. We currently have a quarterly update, but we have also interim monthly updates as needed. So at minimum, you will be getting our quarterly newsletter, which includes anything happening at PADEP, as well as any funding coming from the federal government, because again, we're seeing a lot of that. So yeah, subscribe to the Environmental Justice newsletter. You can Google that. So easy to find us. And show up to your public hearings and meetings, right? Because within your communities, that's where, as she said, that's where the pulse is. Show up, because again, you are likely the technical expert who can be able to ask the right questions to those folks who are looking to do a thing within your community, within communities proximal to you, right? So it's called, that's what advocating is, right? Advocare, lending a voice to those in need. Be willing to advocate. Feel free, we'll also be having a self-enrolling form for future engagement and outreach via our environmental justice webpage. So if you're a community organizer, somebody who's just interested in continued engagement with our Office of Environmental Justice, look out for that. And again, you could always go old school, reach out to us, reach out to our coordinators, our regional coordinators, our local government liaisons. There's always somebody to talk to. I assure you of that. Whether it's myself or somebody else on my team, there's always somebody to talk to. If you would just want to start somewhere, go old school. Pick up a call. Yes. Pick up a phone, drop an email, we'll get it. So I really thank you all for your time today and your attention. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure to put this together with you, and I'm excited to continue working with you both in the future. I just want to reflect before we transition on a few things that I heard on the panel that really struck me. We talked about human rights and everybody having a right to a healthy environment and a green amendment. We talked about mindset change. Environmental justice is not just, it's not a fad. Those who are typically most impacted contribute the least to the pollution. We talked about impacts to public health. You said you don't like living in a dirty city. People are living on top of sinkholes. Power, privilege, policies, practice, we talked about a lot. So thank you. I really appreciate it. So I have just a few closing remarks before we wrap up. As Drew mentioned this morning, we're incredibly grateful for our conference sponsors. We truly couldn't put something like this together without this type of support. So I just want to thank the American Dairy Association Northeast, Conservation Voters of Pennsylvania, Environmental Defense Fund, Environmental Quality Resources, Nature Forward, Penn Future, Potomac Conservancy, the Southern Environmental Law Center, South Wings, the Hatcher Group, Virginia Conservation Network, Virginia Environmental Endowment, Virginia League of Conservation Voters, Waterkeepers Chesapeake, and the Whitaker Center. So thank you so much to our conference sponsors. Our next round of breakouts will run from 1:15 to 2 p.m., so getting started shortly here. If y'all don't have the conference app, there should be QR codes on your table. You can locate the digital version of the conference app and also see a PDF of our sessions and everything like that. So please check out those QR codes on your tables. There's also signs hanging outside of each of the breakout rooms indicating which sessions are being held in that room. Following those breakout sessions, we're gonna have field trips. I hope you're excited for the field trips. We've took a lot of time to put these together. We're gonna meet in the ballroom just over by the buffet tables where you got lunch today. So we'll meet there to gather for our field trips. We're gonna have buses and things taking you to certain places. Also bring your water bottles. We'll have refillable water stations for you to fill up your water bottles before you leave for your field trips. So a couple quick important announcements about field trips. We are departing from the hotel promptly at 2:30. So please arrive by 2:15 for check-in. If you're going to the dairy farm tour, y'all are going to leave a few minutes early at 2:15. So if you're leaving for the dairy tour, you're going to leave a little bit early at 2:15. And we'll have a guide to take you down to your bus if you're going on that tour at 2:20 p.m. For those of you going on the South Wings Discovery flight, y'all are going to head straight to the airport. So you're not going to meet over there, but you're going to go straight to the airport. You don't need to meet in the ballroom, so please arrive at the airport no later than 2:45. So now on to a more fun announcement. We have a very fun reception and evening planned for you. We're going to head over to King Mansion. Again, we'll provide transportation. We'll have buses to get you there and take you home. The location is located right on the Susquehanna. It's a very beautiful site. I hope if you're here, you can stick around for the reception and for our dinner that evening too. We'll have shuttles taking you from the hotel starting at 5:50. Multiple shuttles will be running 5:50, 6 o'clock, 6:10, 6:20, and 6:30. So there will be multiple times that the shuttles will be running. So you can meet for the buses just outside of the hotel entrance. Again, those times are 5:50, 6 o'clock, 6:10, 6:20, and 6:30. And then I also just have to give a special shout out to India Dennis, wherever she is. DJ Independent will be mixing and putting on a good show for us tonight. So thank you so much, India. Really appreciate it. So yeah, that's all I have for you today, and enjoy the rest of your sessions this afternoon. Thank you.